What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, I'm going to talk about new signing Hugo Ekitike. Is he worth it at 8.5 million? Then I'm going to answer a bunch of your early pre-season questions as well. So let's get straight into it. So let's start with Liverpool's new signing Hugo Ekitike, who's already been priced by FPL at 8.5 million. So the same price as Wirtz. I did see some people saying he should have been cheaper than Wirtz, and I understand that point of view. But ultimately, you've got the number 9 for the best team in the league. You can't run the risk of underpricing him. 31 starts last year, 15 goals, 8 assists. Great underlying numbers. He did underperform on XG, not to say he'll do it again next year. If you price him at 7.5 and he hits the ground running, all of a sudden you have an auto pick for a lot of people. So I think 8.5 is fair. Will I be starting with him in my Game Week 1 squad? I'm not ruling it out. I haven't put him in yet, but I am definitely keen. I think as things stand, he'll be first choice number 9. Like Darwin Nunez may or may not still be at Liverpool next season. We'll have to wait and see. But I'd be really surprised if it's not Salah, Wirtz and Ekitike starting in that first game against Bournemouth as it stands. But we had that news a couple of days ago that Isak wants to explore options. And honestly, I don't really see many clubs that he could go to right now if he wants to stay in Europe. And the rumours going around are that Liverpool are not out of the running. So they could have Ekitike and Isak. And obviously if that happens, then there's minutes concerns for Ekitike and the transfer window is open until after game week 1. Who knows, like this could go down to the wire. It might just be that Isak wants a new contract and Newcastle offer him whatever he wants and then he just stays. But as it stands, we've got to keep an eye on that. So I think 8.5 is really good. There's always this narrative that, you know, new players to the league take time to kind of adapt. And sometimes that happens, but I can tell you now, it doesn't always happen, right? Let's remember a guy called Mohamed Salah years ago for Liverpool. Came in, broke the FPL record in his first season. Haaland did extremely well in his first season as well. And I'm not saying Ekitike is as good as those two players, but the narrative is always that new players to the league don't do well straight away. That's not the case. Sometimes they do. And when you're in a team as good as Liverpool, you've got every chance. Wirtz, Salah creating chances for your number 9, that player is probably going to score goals. That is why I won't write it off. It's just that when I've built squad so far, I found it difficult to get 8.5 million for a forward because there's so many midfielders and defenders that I want to spend money on. And also, if I do find 8.5 million, there'll be this thought in my head of, well, do I just spend 0.5 million more and get Watkins? He's a known quantity at Villa. We know what he's going to offer. The fixtures are good. Not sure. But I think, you know, from a footballing point of view, I'm very disappointed at the number of players Liverpool are getting, how good they are. But if I'm thinking purely from an FPL point of view, it's an exciting season. There's lots of new players, and maybe Ekitike will be decent from the off. Like, there's every chance, and I think he will start. Will he play 90 minutes week in, week out? Who knows? But if Isak doesn't join, I think he's going to play a lot more than maybe some people... Maybe it's just obvious, but I think some people will underrate how good he could be. He's definitely an option. Don't forget, by the way, if you want a second opinion on the drafts that you're playing around with at the moment, you can get them rated for free over on the My Team tool on Fantasy Football Hub using the link in the description below or scan the QR code on screen. You can do it on the website or the app. I'm on the app on my phone right now just to show you how quick and easy it is to do. You can just import your team from a screenshot. So if I just go to my photo library, as you can see, I only take pictures of 2 things, my FPL team and my dog. I'm not going to upload the dog. I'm going to choose my latest draft instead. Then I just click done and it should find all the players very quickly. Simple as that. You can just save it then, click optimize and it'll tell you who it thinks should be in the team. You can look at future weeks and stuff like that. Completely free. Link in the description below or scan that QR code. So let's stick to Liverpool and answer the first question. What are your thoughts on Wirtz as a pick? Should we double up with him and Salah or are the fixtures just not good enough to start with? Fixture-wise, I actually think they're not so bad for Liverpool. If they were truly terrible, then even Salah would be a debate about whether or not he should be in our squad. So I think they're okay. I know a lot of people are worried about Arsenal at home in game week 3, but if you want Wirtz, Salah, a Liverpool defender, and maybe, you know, 1, 2, or even 3 Arsenal players, you could always free hit that week. We've got double chips now. There's very rarely double game weeks in the first 19 game weeks. Therefore, you're going to be using your free hit in a single anyway, so why not use it early in game week 3? So that's an option. Obviously, Newcastle away is not easy either, but Liverpool are probably the strongest team in the league right now. So a difficult fixture for them is not as difficult as if it was like Fulham going away to Newcastle or Sunderland going away to Newcastle, etc. So I think it's fine if you want to double up. I would always look at it as you've made your choice that your premium is going to be Salah. You're happy with the rest of your squad. You've got 8.5 million to spend. Who's the next best option? And if you think it's Wirtz over Marmoush or Son or whatever, then it's absolutely fine to pick him. My thoughts on Wirtz as a pick individually, like it's impossible to sit here and say that he's a bad option because he's clearly not. He is new to the league, so the same thing with Ekitike. Will he hit the ground running? Who knows? But there's absolutely reason to believe that he will. Like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend I watch lots of football from, matches that aren't the Premier League because I don't. But people would argue that Wirtz is one of, if not the best number 10 in the world. He's going into the best team in the league. He's got Salah, he's got Ekitike out front, probably Gakpo on the left, maybe Isak soon. How will he not score points? So I think for 8.5 is a decent pickup. I will say I don't think he's underpriced. Everyone keeps saying he's underpriced. He could well be. He's got the capabilities of absolutely smashing that price point. But I don't think right now I look at him and say he's so cheap he has to be in your squad. I'm not sure he's that good, but I think there is a good chance that I will end up with one of him or Ekitike. Interestingly, his underlying numbers last year, 0.23 expected goals per 90 in the Bundesliga, 0.27 expected assists. Not that much better than someone like Bruno Fernandes. And the mere mention of his name gets people with pitchforks, right? So it'll be interesting to see whether he can keep up those numbers in the league and the output as well. I mentioned in a previous video or stream that he got 22 returns last year, but actually that was in 25 starts. So it's actually quite impressive. Can he come and do that for Liverpool? Absolutely. So I think he's a good pick. I don't think he's essential. I don't think he's necessarily underpriced either relative to other players, but he's still so young. And I think there's a difference between like a Cunha or in Burma that got loads of goals last year going into a fairly dysfunctional Man United to Wirtz going into Liverpool. And they've got lots of new signings, right? If they start with Frimpong, Kirkes, Wirtz, Ekitike, etc. There's a lot of new players going in there, but I just can't imagine them not doing well from the off. So I think he's a really good pick. And at 8.5 million, he is the midfielder that I would go for. So speaking of Bruno Fernandes, quite simply, is he worth £9 million in FPL? I'll be honest, I'm struggling quite a lot with that price point. I cannot believe that FPL put him up in price. I know why they did it, because he scored 174 points last year. And if defensive contributions had been a thing, it would have been 196. So he's pushing 200 points. But he's quite unpopular as an FPL pick. I think you need to give people reason to buy him, not put them off him. So 9 million, it does feel a little expensive right now, especially when Man United are playing Arsenal at home, Man City away and Chelsea at home in the first 3 game weeks. Now, Bruno was very good for defensive contributions last year. He averaged 10.68 per 90 minutes. And obviously a midfielder has to get 12 to get those additional 2 points. So he is going to pick those points up regularly enough. And when he does get an attack and return, he's often quite good for bonus. So his first assist, rather than being 3 points, it's often worth 4 to 6 instead. So he's not likely to go and get you those big 15 plus hauls that regularly. I mean, most players aren't, to be fair. But when he does get a return, it's worth a good bit. And you've got those added points from defensive contributions as well. So at 9 million for a player that pushed nearly 200 points last year, that, by the way, is Premier League proven, is probably okay. But I just can't see most people picking him. Not at the start. You've got to be the type of FPL manager that wants him because he's nailed on, he'll always start, he's going to pick up these odd points here or there, and you can just leave him in your team and worry about other players instead. Like, he can be that consistent player for you. If you're someone that, likes to target 4 or 5 good fixtures and then just take a player out, Bruno's not the one for you. Like, those first 5 fixtures that include Arsenal, City, Chelsea, like, could he get defensive contributions against Arsenal? Possibly. And then maybe an assist against Fulham, a goal and assist against Burnley. That could all add up, but he will just frustrate you. So don't buy him. And also, I guess Man United are going through, as ever, every single summer, a bit of a transition. And if Cunha and Mbeumo are going to play as the 10s, Bruno's going to sit a bit deeper, which is obviously good for defensive contributions, but it might limit his attacking potential a bit. I would not be surprised if he walks away this season with another 18 to 20 returns, and I'm almost certain he'll keep penalties ahead of Mbeumo. I almost don't think that's up for debate. 9 million game week 1, Arsenal at home, then City away with 4. I'm not ruling it out because I do like to remain open-minded about any player, but I'm struggling to see me picking him in game week 1. But never say never, and certainly never say never for the rest of the season when the fixtures get better. So why is no one talking about Rodri at Man City? I think there's 2 reasons for that. One, there's a lot of FPL managers out there that aren't really on board with defensive contributions, or they think it's a bit overrated because it's only worth 2 points. So when someone sees Rodri at 6.5 million and they could go and get Kudus or Sarr or Matoma instead, they're still kind of drilled into the thinking that you've got to go for the attacking player. And those 3 players might end up being better, right? But that's definitely a reason. Defensive contributions, they're not fully in the mindset of people when they're looking at FPL picks. The second one, and maybe this is a bigger reason, is just fitness concerns. He had a big injury last year, missed pretty much the whole season once he got that injury. Club World Cup, he did play a bit, but one game he was subbed on, then subbed back off again. We just don't know how fit he's going to be for game week 1. And also, if you're going for a player like Rodri, a big part of the reason to do so this season is because of his defensive contributions. But to get those, you need to be on the pitch. So in the past, Rodri would have been amazing. Definite starter, going to play 90 minutes. I still think when he's fit and available, he's a definite starter in that City team. Nobody has any doubts about that. Is he going to play 90 week in, week out straight away? That's what I'm less sure about. I think this is for his career. This is on that spreadsheet I shared the other day from Sam. His defensive contributions per 90 are 13.38. So on average, he gets the 12 that you need every 90 minutes. So he's going to pick up a lot of defensive contribution points. But importantly with Rodri, he does pick up attacking returns as well. Forget last season because he didn't play hardly at all. Season before, 8 goals, 10 assists. I think that's a bit of an anomaly. I wouldn't expect that many returns from him, but he's fairly consistent. 2 goals, 6 assists the season before, 7 goals, 2 assists the one before that, 4 attacking returns before that, and then 5 the season before. So not only is he going to pick you up the odd attacking return, he's going to pick up lots of defensive contribution points. So I think he's a good pick if we can be sure about his fitness. But if we're going into game week 1 and there's question marks where he might play and get subbed off on 60, 65. Is that enough time to get those tackles, interceptions, ball recoveries in? If it's not, I'd rather spend my 6.5 elsewhere. But I do think at some point this season, Rodri has got the potential to become a template player, I think. So with Bournemouth's nice run of fixtures from game week 2 onwards, should we go with Evanilson, Semenyo or Kluivert? Now, I do agree the fixtures are pretty good after game week 1. I mean, game week 1 is Liverpool away. It's about as tough as it gets. After that, you've got 4 home games in the next 6, and they are Wolves, Brighton, Newcastle and Fulham, so not bad. And the 2 away games are Spurs and Leeds. Like, Spurs will probably be better this year under Thomas Frank, especially if they got their first choice defence fit at all times. But it's not an awful fixture. And Leeds are probably one of the stronger teams that have come up from the Championship in recent years. But again, on paper, it's a decent fixture. So I quite like game weeks 2 to 7, even game week 8, Crystal Palace away is okay. And at 7 million, I think they're a good price. Who'd you go for? I mean, I'm going to give the obvious answer straight away. Do you need a forward or do you need a midfielder, right? Think of the combination. Someone said to me on my draft video that I put out yesterday, I've got Semenyo and Welbeck. They would prefer Evanilson and Mitoma. I think that's an absolutely fine swap. So think of it from that kind of point of view. So I think Evanilson, compared to Welbeck, might be a better option. Evanilson doesn't have penalties, but I think fitness is less of a concern. And if you compare him to Jared Bowen, for example, at 8 million, Bowen's got Sunderland away and pretty good fixtures after that. But I think from game week 2 onwards, Evanilson's definitely comparable. So he's strong as an option at 7. With the midfielders, I'm torn, just like I was for a lot of last season. Like if Kluivert was cheaper than Semenyo, I would take him because he's on penalties. But when you look at that open play goal threat, Semenyo is more of a threat when there's no penalties involved. And actually, their number of goals last year was very similar, especially when you consider that Kluivert got quite a few penalties. So I've got a sneaky feeling that Semenyo is going to end up being a better option than Kluivert. I also think he'll play more 90 minutes as well, but it's super close. So that's why I've got Semenyo in my team. You could go for both. You could go for a double up. Kluivert and Semenyo and Evanilson, whatever combination you want. Nothing wrong with that. It's just game week 1 won't be ideal. But it's not a case that I think Evanilson is so much better for the midfielders, you've got to put him in. If you've got a front line of Ekitike, I don't know, Chris Wood, and Strand Larsen or whatever it is, and you're happy with that, you don't need to force Evan Nilsson in. If you've got a space in midfield, just go for one of them instead. Basically, I'm not trying to sit on the fence here. I think they're all good picks. I genuinely do. But if I have to choose from the midfielders right now, I'm saying Semenyo, but I suspect when I get closer to game week 1, I might take the penalty taker instead. So can Foden or Marmoush cover Erling Haaland for Man City's good opening fixtures? And I've seen a few questions similar like can Wirtz cover Salah, etc. I think for attackers in particular, we have to get away from this mindset of cover, that you have to cover a certain premium or a certain team. The only question really to ask is this player a good option for the price, or is there a better option instead? Like, that is it. And maybe when people talk about cover, that's really what they're asking. But people do get fixated that they can't afford Haaland, so they have to have someone else from Man City. And that's not necessarily always the case. Let's say, for example, right, and I'm just going to pick numbers out of the air to make a point. Let's say Haaland scores 25 goals this year, and I'm going to leave assists out of the equation. 25 goals, Marmoush gets 12. He hasn't really covered those 25 goals. And what if Wirtz, for the same price as Marmoush, has gone and scored 15 goals? That fixation to have a Man City player has cost you points because you could have gone and got Wirtz instead. And it's absolutely a good thing in FPL to look at fixture runs. So I understand why, Man City players are potentially options that people want to consider. But my thought process would be, can I afford Erling Haaland or am I just going to go for Salah? Can I afford both, etc.? If my decision is that I'm going to go for Salah and not Haaland, I don't necessarily then say I've got to have a Man City player, right? I might look at Marmoush, but I would look at him at 8.5 and think I'd rather have Wirtz. I think his minutes will probably be better. I will say, just as a caveat to that, I might be underestimating Marmoush. He did start a lot of games last year, but we've been here a lot of time with Man City players. That doesn't mean it will continue. Doesn't mean they won't get subbed off early, etc. So right now, I would look at Haaland, don't have 8.5. I'd rather go for Wirtz. So I still don't have a Man City midfielder. Then you've got Foden at 8 million. He could be amazing value at that price, or he could be in and out of the team. In which case, I'd rather go and get Morgan Rogers at 7 million, Semenyo at 7 million, that I know are going to start. So I don't have this, like, if I don't have Haaland, I think it's very unlikely I'll have any Man City attackers. I just won't go there because I think there'll be better options elsewhere. There was a time last season, I might be remembering incorrectly, I'm very old now. There was a time when people were, not everyone, right, but a lot of people were looking at Liverpool players, and I said something that really irritated a few Liverpool fans. I said I'd rather have Mbeumo right now than any of those Liverpool players because none of those attackers outside of Salah, last season this is, were nailed on. Whereas Mbeumo might have had slightly worse fixtures, but he played 90 minutes every game and was on penalties and smashed them all. He scored more points than all the Liverpool attackers apart from Salah. So that is why I just think cover's the wrong way to look at it. If you can't afford Haaland or you've decided he's not an option, of course you can pick Man City players, but don't get fixated that you have to have them. There might be a better option from a different team, even if the fixtures are slightly worse. So 2 questions here about defensive contributions. First one, do you think the 5th midfielder slot should end up being a set and forget player with strong defensive contributions, or should we chase this season's Rodgers/Palmer? And then because of additional points for defenders and midfielders, is it viable to play 4-5-1? I did do a whole video on defensive contributions a few days ago if you want to check that out. But just to answer these questions quickly, I'm all up for chasing another Rodgers or Palmer if there's one available. Like with Palmer, it became quickly evident that he was going to be a great pick at the price. And Rodgers was in a lot of teams, including mine, from game week 1. Aston Villa's number 10 for 5 million. If there's a player like that again, I'd probably be more interested in them over a defensive pick. But right now, I don't necessarily see that player. Now, one might emerge over the next few weeks, but I'm not convinced it will. And if, it's like a Sunderland player that we're not quite sure about how well they're going to do this season, for example, in that case, if I'm spending 5.5 on a Dingra, for example, I'd rather probably just get the defensive player that I can just leave and forget. They can just tick over with points and maybe I can use them if and when needed. So it really depends what options emerge. But right now, I'm not all that enthusiastic about 5.5 and below midfielders that aren't defensive ones, but that could change. On the 4-5-1, I think it will be viable at points potentially, but I don't think it should be our aim necessarily to play that week in, week out. I still think overall 3-4-3, 3-5-2 is probably going to win out most weeks. But I do think potentially what defensive contributions could do is it means we move those players around less, those defensive midfielders and the defenders that are good for defensive contributions, like Lacroix from Palace, for example. And when we get injuries and stuff like that, we might be more open to playing 4-5-1 for 1 or 2 weeks while that attacker gets back to fitness rather than make a transfer. But as it stands right now, I'm not super sure about playing 4-5-1 every week. It could be viable. The problem you have is there's not many really cheap forwards to have on the bench. And you could go 4-5-1 and just have 2 4.5 million forwards that are very unlikely to get many minutes. And that can work for a few weeks. But once you start stacking up suspensions and injuries and stuff like that, it's just too many transfers to deal with. So I think we might see 5-4-1, 4-5-1, 4-4-2 get played more often than normal. But I'm not fully convinced it becomes the go-to strategy. But around making videos, I've not played around with my draft a huge amount. So I will look at formations like that. Maybe my opinion will change over the next few weeks. If you've enjoyed that video, make sure to give it a like, hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to get your team rated for free using the link in the description below. And I'll catch you again soon for another video.